Let us pray. Almighty God, we beseech you to behold with your abundant favor and blessings as your servants whom you have been pleased to call to leadership positions in this republic. We seek guidance to treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country and of those whose interests you have committed to our charge. Amen.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair. Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions.
Standing committee, Chair, Standing Committee on Land, Environment, and Natural Resources. Doesn't seem to be here. We defy it. Petition by Dr. Senator Mbito.
A petition, Mr. Speaker, this is a petition to the Senate concerning the plight of seed farmers in Trans Nzoia County and lack of support by the government, resulting to psychological torture due to deficits and losses that farmers incur every other time. Mr. Speaker, we, the undersigned, citizens of the Republic of Kenya and residents of Trans Nzoia County, representing 200 seed farmers, draw the attention of the Senate to the following. 1, that Kenya Seed Company Limited is the main seed producer in East Africa and East and Central Africa. That 99% of the seeds are planted by 200 seed farmers who then supply the Kenya Seed Company for commercial farmers to buy and plant for consumption and otherwise. That the Trans Nzoia Seed Farmers Association was formed to champion the seed farmers' needs to the Kenya Seed Company and look at how to improve the operations for quality production. That without seed production in Kenya, there will be no commercial production of maize in East and Central Africa. That the last comprehensive review of seed prices by Kenya Seed Company was done in more than 7 years ago. Secondly, the cost of production and the risks involved. That farm inputs are very expensive and subject the seed farmers to income loss. That the risks of total loss due to diseases, natural disaster, degraded quality control at basic seed production, and poor variety selection by Kenya Seed Company is borne by the seed farmers. That the road networks are in a deplorable state, and 90% of feeder roads are impassable. Lack of farmer representation. That local farmers are never represented on all agricultural statutory organizations like Kenya Seed Company, National Cereal and Produce Board, AFC, KCC, ADC, CALRO, among others. That there is no seed farmer participation in the management of the relevant agricultural bodies, and that the staffing of the agricultural statutory organizations, especially Kenya Seed Company, is not representative of all communities in the region. Number 4, seed farmers have deficits in the bank. That 99% of seed farmers have deficits in various banks, that the government is not supporting them through subsidies and loan waivers, that seed farmers are getting no incentives. Number 5, that we have made the best effort to have these matters addressed by the relevant authorities, all of which have failed to give a satisfactory response. That none of the issues raised in this petition is pending in any court of law or constitutional or any other legal body. Wherefore, our humble petitioners pray that the Senate, 1, intervenes to ensure that there is a specific policy for seed farmers, that the Senate help in instituting a framework to have local farmers represented in all agricultural statutory organizations, that the Senate ensures the introduction of the guaranteed minimum return policy for seed farmers, that the Senate intervenes to ensure a comprehensive review of the crop insurance taken for seed production, that the Senate intervenes to ensure that no maize importation until farmers have exhausted their stocks, that the Senate intervenes to enable price increase of seed maize produce delivered to Kenya seed companies by 60% due to inflation, increased cost of production, uncertainty caused by climatic change, and other risk factors, that the Senate intervenes to ensure that there is a regulatory miller to help in regulation and add value to what the farmers are doing, that the Senate intervenes to ensure that farmers are paid promptly by Kenya seed companies, that the Senate intervenes to ensure that farmers are properly identified for purposes of proper allocation of fertilizer based on their acreage. Mr. Speaker, this petition is signed by Mr. John Mikolela, Michael Lugalia, Davis Mabianga, Tom Nyairo, Anthony Barasa, and Karen Haoya. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Senators, pursuant to Standing Order 231, I shall now allow comments, observations, or clarifications in relation to the petition for not more than 30 minutes. Senator Wetangula? Oh, okay. You already? Okay. Okay, Senator Wetangula, then Senator Chariot. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm happy that the distinguished Senator for Kericho understands. Mr. Speaker, I support this petition very strongly. In fact, the 5 petitioners whose names have been read by the Senator for Trans Nzoia, I know each one of them. They're big farmers, they're seed multipliers, and there are people who are very committed to farming. Mr. Speaker, Kenya is classified as an agricultural country. An agricultural country where continued policies do everything but support the farmer. The farmer in this country, Mr. Speaker, is on his or her own. When we talk of subsidies, Mr. Speaker, and you go to the countryside, and senators can bear me witness on this, you find our governors are giving fertilizer subsidy, and they give a gorogoro of fertilizer to a family. What food production can you have from a gorogoro of DAP? But more importantly, Mr. Speaker, is the compromise on seed multiplication and seed production. In the old days, Mr. Speaker, the government used to pay a lot of attention to the management of Kenya Seed Company, producing seeds that were distributed in the entire East African region, in Uganda, in Tanzania, in Rwanda, in Burundi, up to Zambia. Today, Mr. Speaker, Kenya Seed Company is a limping giant. They can't even produce enough seed for Kenya. And the seed they're producing is so compromised in quality, Mr. Speaker, that at the end of the day, the farmers are not getting any yields at all. In our maize inquiry committee, Mr. Speaker, where the senator for Trans Nzoia was a member, we flagged out the twiddling fortunes of seed production as one of the problems in the maize sector, reckless importations, lack of inputs, and above all, Mr. Speaker, post-harvest losses and the lack of government intervention to stabilize maize prices. I want to urge the committee that you will give this petition, and I always have exhibited a lot of confidence in the Senator for Embu, who is the chair of the Committee of Agriculture, because we've worked with him when he was Minister for Cooperatives, and his commitment to agriculture and his improvement in this country was extremely admirable. That we must look into the operations of Kenya Seed, the funding of Kenya Seed, the marketing of Kenya Seed, and above all, Mr. Speaker, the zoning that we used to have on how to have maize seed multiplication without adulterating the crop by planting commercial maize alongside seed maize. We want to see, Mr. Speaker, that even areas like Katumani in Ukambani that produce the 3-month maturing maize are supported in multiplying seeds that help in growing maize in areas that have a rain deficit. So this petition is timely. I salute those 5 farmers whom I know very well, and I have no doubt, Mr. Speaker, that this petition will be given due attention, and when it appears before the committee, I urge the Senator for Trans Nzoia and all of us who come from the maize basket areas of Uasin Gishu, Nakuru, Bungoma, Kakamega, Busia, Vihiga, Trans Nzoia, West Pokot, be on standby to help prosecute this petition. Not to mention Kericho and Bomet, which equally grow some good amount of maize. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Cheruiyot.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I support this petition. It's a very important issue that these petitioners want this House to give the attention that is due to. Mr. Speaker, we pride ourselves as being an agricultural-based economy. Yet, due to the neglect and poor policies in the agricultural subsector, you'll find that today we import onions from Tanzania, maize from Uganda, and tomatoes from Tanzania. And you wonder, Mr. Speaker, doesn't it concern, is it not a cause for alarm to those of us who are in leadership? Mr. Speaker, as senators in this House, and I want to believe our colleagues will get a chance to read through this particular petition and give answers to the farmers, they must be able to come up with a concise report that will guide this House into giving recommendations, first of all, as an answer to petition, but also direct the Ministry of Agriculture on issues that have been brought, because I do believe, Mr. Speaker, that once a committee is charged with a petition, despite giving feedback to petitioners, one of the things that we must always strive to do is to invite also the people that make these decisions at policy level, the cabinet secretary, the permanent secretary, and all those people that are charged with that responsibility, and bring to their attention some of these concerns. In fact, it is a shame that it has to take farmers in Trans Nzoia to bring it to the attention of the country via petition to the Senate, that it is only a close-knit group of 200 farmers who nobody knows how they were chosen that supplies seed to the entire republic. Mr. Speaker, I have information, and I know this for a fact, that in fact even amongst those 200 farmers, there's a specific select group of about 1 or 2 that produce close to 70 or 80% of that seed. The rest are just, they're just an accompaniment to this very bad arrangement that had ensured that our farmers, 1, continue to buy seed at an exorbitant price, and 2, this country is a free market. Why not open it up so that Kenya Seed can pre-qualify, even if it's on the basis of 1 or 2 years? Let us have people compete. Let us have farmers who have new and modern technology. I know there are farmers in this country, Mr. Speaker, who can produce this seed for our farmers are maybe 30 or even 40% of the cost that this special select group of 200 are using to produce. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I do want to request, because I know there are members of agriculture who are listening to this petition, that apart from just giving response and answers to these petitioners, invite the cabinet secretary and ask of them, let them give answers to Kenyans and understand what is the rationale, what is the logic that has ensured that they have this as a close-knit business that is only being enjoyed by a select few. Mr. Speaker, finally, this petition has also bring to the attention of this House the increasing cost of production for agricultural products in this country, Mr. Speaker. And this is something that as a Senate, we must give due attention, because all of you as senators, in one way or the other, you are representatives of farmers. And it's unfortunate that this government makes decisions in a way that is not proper and in sync with the demands of our constitution, Mr. Speaker. There is discrimination in agricultural policies. I know Senator Wetangula has spoken to this. You do remember on the issue of coffee. When we set up the coffee fund, the five factories that were picked to be able to be the test areas for that sub-product, all of them come from one particular region. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, President Kibaki, God bless that old man, in his wisdom, he ensured that fertilizer was subsidized for all farmers in this republic. But this administration, because of the way they make their decisions, they looked at the list of the benefactors and they considered those regions to be regions that are populated with people that they think are less of Kenyans. They cancelled. It is shameful. This committee must give us the response. We must know what it is that informed the decision by this government to cancel the fertilizer subsidy program that ensured that the cost of fertilizer, which had dropped to about 2,500 per 50 kg bag, has all of a sudden shot up to 6,000. It is shameful, and it is not something that we need to preside over as a House. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I do hope that the Committee of Agriculture will do justice to these petitioners, and we shall be looking forward to their report. With those remarks, Mr. Speaker, I support. Thank you.
Senator Musuruve. Senator Musuruve.
Honorable Speaker, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to support this noble petition that has been brought by Senator Mbito. And I want to say, Honorable Speaker, that really Kenya is one of the nations that signed the Maputo Declaration that asserted that state parties should give 10% of the national revenue to go to agriculture. And I want to say, Honorable Speaker, that agriculture plays a big role in the economy of this country. And as a Senate, we have to see how to encourage farmers out there, because that is our business. And I have to say, Honorable Speaker, that this petition has come timely. The Kenya Seed Company should be a company that is representative of all farmers in this republic. And we have to see how to stand with our farmers, because they are actually self-employed and they create employment. Apart from creating employment, Honorable Speaker, they are using the factors of production, that is land, effectively. And apart from that, Honorable Speaker, we see our women also working very hard on the land. We see also youths working very hard on the land, and there must be returns, Honorable Speaker. So we have to look for a mechanism of ensuring that there's a framework that is going to help our farmers. And Honorable Speaker, this framework should not be a theoretical framework. It should be a framework that is workable, so that the farmer benefits, Honorable Speaker. And there's no way that we should support a situation where maize is being imported from outside the country and our farmers still have maize in their stores. We have to see how to create an exit for the produce of our farmers, Honorable Speaker. So I want to support this petition petition, and I hope that when it goes to the right committee is going to expedite and ensure that we are cushioning our farmers, Honorable Speaker. Because just like anybody else, they have needs. They have school fees. They have to pay. In fact, they don't have insurance for their children, for hospitals. They have to get from their farm produce. So let us be in the steps of the farmers and ensure that we are helping the farmers in Kenya. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to support the petition I support.
Honorable Senators, because of time, pursuant to Standing Order 2321, the petition is committed to the Standing Committee on Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries, which is the relevant standing committee on for its consideration. In terms of Standing Order 232, the committee is required in not more than 60 calendar days from the time of reading the prayer to respond to the petitioner by way of report addressed to the petitioner and laid on the table of the Senate. The next petition, Chairman Standing Committee, Land, Environment and Natural Resources.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the Senate today, Tuesday, 22nd September 2020. The report of the Standing Committee on Land, Environment and Natural Resources on a petition to the Senate by Ms. Caro Karuga, Chief Executive Officer of the Kenya Private Sector Alliance, KEPSA, regarding the state of land registries and frequent closure of the Central and Nairobi land registries. Mr. Speaker, this petition was about issuance of notices of closure of Central and Nairobi registries for purposes of conducting audit on land records in registries, with most recent notice being on the 12th of February 2020. Mr. Speaker, KEPSA came up with this petition because the government was losing funds in terms of the payments that are supposed to be paid to the Ministry of Lands. Mr. Speaker, this arbitrary closure was resulting to enormous negative impact on the economy with regard to the overall global ranking on the ease of doing business and access to credit in Kenya. Mr. Speaker, we deliberated on this petition. We invited the Ministry of Lands and Settlement, and we also invited KEPSA officials to be able to interrogate on this matter, and found out that it had a big impact on the economy of this country. Mr. Speaker, after listening to the petitioners, listening to the Ministry of Lands and Settlement, we made some recommendations. Mr. Speaker, recommendation number 1 on the issue of closure of the large registry for purposes of digitization of records, the committee made a recommendation that during digitalization of the land records, Mr. Speaker, it should be done in phases so that those affected, those people who are affected, can be able to be operational during the digitalization process. Mr. Speaker, we said the plan should ensure that no land registry is free closed at any one time. They can do it in a manner of phases, so that they do the first phase, the second phase, the third phase. But while they do so, the registry should remain operational. Mr. Speaker, we also said that the digitalization should be published and publicized to all stakeholders and the members of the public at least 14 days before the commencement of the phased digitalization in the respective registries. We said that stakeholders should be informed in advance so that they know that the process of digitalization is being undertaken, so that they can also be able to plan ahead of times and know when to go to the large registry and when not to go to the large registry. Mr. Speaker, we said that the ministry should ensure predictability in the operation of the registries by setting clear timelines for the phased digitalization process. The phases should be clear, it should be known. If they are doing it in March, those affected should know that there will be digitalization in March, in June, in September, so that the stakeholders can be able to plan themselves to do their work. Mr. Speaker, the Cabinet Secretary, Minister of Lands and Physical Planning, should ensure that the notice for commencement of the digitalization process advises stakeholders and the public on how the registry is to continue its operations during digitalization process. Where the Ministry of Lands and Physical Planning anticipates any delays in the process of digitalization process, such delays should be brought to the attention of the stakeholders. The ministry should also be working with the stakeholders. They should be doing their planning with the stakeholders so that the stakeholders do not continue missing businesses. We had a lot of stakeholders when we held this discussion, and they were complaining that the Ministry of Lands is facing them out of business, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, without much ado, I would now wish to table the report on the floor of this House. Thank you. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, next order.
Order number 5, papers. Order number 6, notices of motion.
Senator Ledama.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order number 34 to seek leave to move an adjournment motion to discuss a definite matter of urgent national importance, namely the Chief Justice advised to the President to dissolve Parliament under Article 261(7), as read with Article 27(3) and 8, 81B, and 100 of the Constitution, based on the grounds that Parliament has failed to enact the legislation required to implement the 2/3 gender rule in accordance with cited articles of the Constitution. I'm Kenny. I have enough. Good.
I'm satisfied you have the numbers. So 4:30, I appoint 4:30 as the time to discuss that. Senator Dulo.
Mr. Speaker, I'm standing on standing order number 1. I would request the House to adjourn for 1 hour to discuss adjournment motion by Senator Olekina. I thank you.
Okay. Yes, Senator Mutula Jr.
Mr. Speaker, since the debate is going to be here, I think I propose that we do it then, the Kamkunji in 20-30 minutes. It's more than enough. Yes. So that we can bring the debate here once we have caucused. 1 hour is too long to talk about what we are going to talk about.
Correct.
20 minutes is more than enough. Thank you.
Okay, order, Senators. Okay, Senators, I'm aware of the matter that has been raised by the Honorable Senator, and in order that Senators may be appraised further on the matter, I'll use standing order number 1 to suspend the proceedings and converge at Kamkunji here in the chamber for 30 minutes.
Order, members, take your seats. This one is on forever. Order, members, order. Next order, please.
Order number 7, statements.
Honorable Senators, for the 2 minutes that are remaining before the appointed time, I give this opportunity to Senator Millicent Omanga to make her 2-minute statement. Honorable Senators, you be patient and you'll hear her.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise pursuant to Standing Order 48-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Health regarding the state of Pumwani Maternity Hospital. In the statement, the committee should, 1, outline measures the Nairobi Metropolitan Services has put in place to ensure health workers at Pumwani Maternity Hospital are paid their dues and get improved welfare. 2, state the health protocols the Nairobi Metropolitan Services is putting in place to ensure easy access of the health facility despite claims by patients who are being turned away due to threats posed by COVID-19. And lastly, explain whether the Nairobi City County health workers should be treated as civil servants, given that Nairobi City County Health Services were transferred to the national government. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Okay. Thank you, Senators. Now it's 4:30, the appointed time for the statement. $4:30. Let me give you 1 minute, Senator of Nairobi.
Madam Speaker, the issues at Pumwani Hospital, and I'm glad Senator Omanga has brought it, are actually deep issues. And I would just want to urge the Health Committee, because the last time there was a problem in Pumwani Hospital, we went there with the Health Committee, and we didn't even get a report. That time was when babies were being dumped in paper bags without incinerator, without all of those equipment. We have HR issues that are serious. We have issues with even the facility. And Madam Speaker, which led to a woman giving birth on the street. We should all be ashamed and embarrassed. So in as much as NMS has issued a statement apologizing, NMS must be summoned to the Senate for them to answer to us on what is happening in Pumwani. Our mothers must be assured of the best quality of healthcare. It is not enough to say that health is free for them, but they need to know that they can be able to access it even during this time of COVID, because Pumwani had been on a go-slow. And also on top of that, and I hope the committee is hearing, they need to tell us about the outstanding NHIF issues and labor relations issues around Nairobi generally, not just Pumwani Hospital, because we had a strike for a while, and I was just speaking to Dr. Thuranira, who is the head of the union in Nairobi. Those issues have not been resolved. They're being taken down in circles. So thank you, Senator Omanga, and I hope we have a real answer from the Health Committee and not what happened last time when Pumwani issues came up. Pumwani is dear to very many of us Nairobians, many of whom were born in Pumwani Hospital. Thank you, Madam Speaker, for your indulgence.
Thank you. Honorable Senators, if we get time, we'll come back to the statement by chairs of committees. For now, let's go back to the motion by Senator of Narok, Senator Olekina.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I move that the Senate do now adjourn to discuss a definite matter of urgent national importance, namely the advice by the Chief Justice to have the President dissolve Parliament pursuant to Article 261(7) of the Constitution. Madam Speaker, this is an issue which is very grave, and it's a matter which I consider quite troubling in the sense that even those who are advocating for the two-third gender rule have got no clear way on how it's going to be achieved. Madam Speaker, I blame this squarely on the committee of experts, the ones who drafted the Constitution. I've read this Constitution from Article 1 all the way to the last article, and I'm at a loss as to how this Parliament, which has made several attempts to be able to come up with a legislation as required under Article 261, and particularly on Article 100 of the Constitution, but has failed because of very difficult things, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, in the 10th Parliament, just to show you how this Parliament has attempted to deal with this matter, on the 10th Parliament, Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2011, by the then Minister for Justice, National Cohesion, and Constitutional Affairs, the late Mutula Kilonzo. Madam Speaker, the bill sought to give effect to Article 27 and 81B of the Constitution by introducing a new paragraph in Article 97 and 98 to provide that the filling of the special seats shall be determined after the declaration of elected members from each constituency. The bill lapsed at the end of the term of Parliament. Madam Speaker, the 11th Parliament also made several attempts. This include an attempt by Honorable Samuel Chepkwonga, Honorable Aden Duale. Madam Speaker, Duale made several attempts to introduce different. Chepkwonga also came up. Senator Judith Sijeni came up with the Constitutional Amendment Bill 16 of 2015. The bill had proposed to amend Article 97 and 98 to ensure that the composition of Parliament complies with the requirement that not more than 2/3 of its members are from the same gender by the election of members. Honorable Chepkwonga tried as well. Madam Speaker, on the 12th Parliament, the son of the first man who attempted to introduce the same bill came up, my distinguished friend, which is Senator Mutula Kilonzo, and my sister, Senator Farhia Ali. Madam Speaker, on their bill, the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 4 of 2018, which they sought to give effect on the two-third gender rule. In the lower house, Madam Speaker, Jeremiah Kioni also attempted to do that in the Amendment Bill 52 of 2019. The Honorable Gladys Bos-Cholei also attempted to do that on the Amendment Bill 53 of 2019. So this Parliament, Madam Speaker, has made several attempts, which now begs a big question. You know, that is the Chief Justice forcing Parliament to implement the two-third gender rule against their will? Madam Speaker, I'm quite sure that even women legislators voted against that. That's why they could not be able to raise the two-third gender rule. I think we have to really be alive to the fact that this Constitution was hurried. Madam Speaker, if you go to Article 93, Article 93 of the Constitution defined Parliament as comprised of the National Assembly and the Senate. If you now go to Article 261, the article that the Chief Justice has relied on, if you look at Article 261, it refers to Parliament. In that case, the Senate is involved. But it gives the powers to the National Assembly to be able to extend the duration of time. That time, the Senate, you are out of the picture. I just think there are so many things which are wrong. Madam Speaker, I'll go to Article 97 of the Constitution as well, which define the constituencies that are going to be set up in this country to be 290. Article 98 of the Constitution also limit the elected position of the Senate to be 47. Now the question that has been pondering when I saw this, Madam Speaker, is I come from Narok East constituency. So in Narok East constituency, because the Constitution requires that this parliament passes legislation to ensure a two-thirds gender rule, now in Narok East constituency, we go and tell the people of Narok East that you must only elect a woman or a man, and you cannot elect a woman to be able to represent you. Madam Speaker, if you look at Article 97 of the Constitution, it has a disclaimer. It says that regardless of the numbers which has been set up, no one is prohibited from running for that position, which means if you're a woman or a man, you can still seek that elective position. I just find that this Constitution contradicts itself in so many instances. And I blame the committee of experts who hurried it. I also blame other members who are in this House. You know, I was having this conversation with the distinguished senator from Bungoma, who was actually in Parliament then. And I think they hurried it because people were not interested in paying attention to details and understanding the consequences. So, Madam Speaker, as we take this, you know, I'm one of those people who believe that if the Chief Justice would have actually taken time to consult widely, you know, speak to the President, speak to the two speakers, you know, and have a way to deal with this, and not approach things like a lone ranger would have had a solution. But now the question that even the Article 261 that the Chief Justice has quoted raises is that suppose now this parliament is dissolved. Article 267 says a new parliament. What is the definition of a new parliament? Okay? Doesn't that call for another general election? So what if the parliament is dissolved tomorrow, we have a general election, and Kenyans out there elect 290 men, or elect 47 women as senators? Would we be curing the issue? So, Madam Speaker, this is a matter that requires sobriety. It's not a matter that, you know, want us to use force, because you cannot force Kenyans. Madam Speaker, this almost looks like when you're playing soccer, and then all of a sudden, you decide to return the ball back to the goalkeeper, but accidentally, you send it to the striker, who now controls it. What has happened in this country is that we have been doing so well in terms of democracy. We have been growing as a young democracy, freedom of speech, you know, but the action by the Chief Justice, Madam Speaker, now really takes back all that power and gives the power to the President so that the President can decide. Madam Speaker, I've looked at the Constitution again. It talks about the election of the President and the members of the Parliament the same day. So what does this advisory by the Chief Justice mean? Does it mean that now once this is dissolved, or Parliament is dissolved, then the President also goes home? I mean, it is COVID time. Do we have money to be able to run an election? You know, like a mini general election, or actually a general election, and then come back to the issue of BBI. I think we need to be realistic, because not everything is cast on stone. I think we will gain a lot more if we consult instead of taking a lone ranger approach. This lone ranger approach, Madam Speaker, has taught even some of us that it doesn't help. We've got to consult here. Whenever a member brings a bill here, they need to sit down and discuss, you know, build consensus. Madam Speaker, there are things which really shocks me. As a member of this Senate, I have two bills which I've introduced in this House. They went to the National Assembly and they were declared money bills. So if you're blaming, you know, both houses for maybe actions of one house, then what are we going to do in this country? Are we going to just create things? So, Madam Speaker, as I wind up, I just want to reiterate two things and actually ask a very key question. Can the legislation contemplated under Article 100 be enacted without amending the ceiling of numbers of MPs as provided by the Constitution? And the answer, most people will say, you go back to the Constitution. Because we will now say, let us change. Instead of 290, let us do what? Let us change the way Parliament works. We will be limited to the provisions of Article 255 of the Constitution that requires a referendum. So any action that we take, Madam Speaker, in order to be able to build this country as a democracy, we must look at the entire law. We must agree or admit to mistakes that we made so that moving forward, we can be able to correct them. Madam Speaker, as I wind up and request Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr. to second, I just want to encourage all of us to read the Constitution and correct it very soon with a referendum. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the letter by the Chief Justice raises serious constitutional issues which we ideally must debate and discuss with the sobriety it deserves. Madam Speaker, under Article 102, the term of Parliament is defined as the term of each House of Parliament. The term of each House of Parliament expires on the date of the next general elections. Madam Speaker, this clause alone suggests that there is a contradiction or an apparent conflict between Article 102 and Article 261. The second issue, Madam Speaker, that raises serious concern is that it is contemplated under the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court, Article 2, that an appeal can be raised on any matter on interpretation of the Constitution. The reason why the drafters of this Constitution, and I participated in the research on the Supreme Court and its jurisdiction, is that we contemplated that the Supreme Court would have powers and jurisdiction to determine such critical issues as this one. Why do I raise this issue? Madam Speaker, I'm raising this issue because the President of the Supreme Court is the Chief Justice. And therefore, in exercise of his jurisdiction, under Article 261, the Chief Justice should have exercised extreme caution because of the possibility that an appeal would be raised to the Supreme Court on the interpretation of the exercise of jurisdiction under Article 261, 5, 6, and 7. Thirdly, it is also a contradiction, Madam Speaker, that the Chief Justice is given what appears to be an administrative role under Article 261 to transmit a decision under Article 261(7) to the President to dissolve Parliament. Madam Speaker, this article, the transitional part of the Constitution under Chapter 18, will require also, Madam Speaker, in my view, deliberate interpretation. What bothers me, and I've said this before, that for the President to take action, and I slightly disagree with the notion that the word shall has got two meanings. The word shall is mandatory. However, in the exercise of jurisdiction by the President under Article 261(7), I am not persuaded that the President does not have a jurisdiction quasi-judicial to check whether the process under Article 261 has been followed. Madam Speaker, we want to tell His Excellency at the time he's exercising this jurisdiction, and we hope the Attorney General, who is mentioned in Article 261(6)(b), that the order directing Parliament and the Attorney General to take steps to ensure that the required legislation is enacted, Madam Speaker, this part of the Constitution was not complied with. It is, Madam Speaker, an issue of constitutional concern whether, and in my view, I submit humbly that the President cannot exercise jurisdiction under Article 261(7) if Article 261(6)(b) has not been complied with. Time measure. Is the time up?
Honorable Senators, this is a statement under Standing Order 34. Every member except the mover uses only a maximum of 5 minutes. So you have your 2 minutes.
Oh,
The
I still
bell,
have.
your 1 minute. The bell is showing you 1 minute.
Therefore, Madam Speaker, the mandatory terms under Article 261(7) for the President to exercise jurisdiction, the President must check that an order was transmitted to Parliament. We want the President to check in the communication by the Chief Justice that an order was directed to Parliament and Attorney General and served on the Speaker of the National Assembly and Senate in order for 261(7) to apply. And lastly, Madam Speaker, in terms of practical terms, the Constitution under Article 260 says this Constitution is supposed to breathe life into it. Madam Speaker, it's supposed to be interpreted such a way that it is not a contradiction. You dissolve Parliament today, go on election in 90 days, chances are that there will be further default if those mechanisms that are contemplated in this Constitution are not put in before that dissolution. And therefore, it is my view that the Chief Justice acted prematurely, in a hurry, and without ensuring that certain minimal things were done. It almost appears as if the Chief Justice has become an activist, where he's supposed to be a president and where he's supposed to be the chief presiding judge of the highest court of the land. I support.
Honorable Senators, I now propose the question that the Senate do now adjourn to discuss a definite matter of urgent national importance, namely the advice by the Chief Justice to have the President dissolve Parliament pursuant to Article 261(7) of the Constitution. Honorable Senators, a good number, I see the list is very long. And again, may I repeat that this is under Standing Order number 34, so you only have a maximum of 5 minutes. May I request Senator Manga, if she's not under intervention, to actually switch off that and move to the right request, because you are in the wrong place. Senator Obusia, Senior Senator Amos Switswila Wako.
Thank you, Madam, for giving me this opportunity to speak on a matter which is raising very fundamental, complex constitutional issues. Because of time, only 5 minutes, I'll try to be very brief. The structure of this Constitution is that we removed from the President the powers to prorogue and dissolve Parliament. And therefore, the terms of Parliament are clearly set out in the Constitution, very much like the American Constitution, and we state that under Article 101, general elections will be held on the second Tuesday in August of every 5th year. And therefore, the definition of general election is not anywhere else in the Constitution, apart from what we now read here. Should be held every 5th year. And that was deliberate because of the former Constitution, which gave the President all the powers to dissolve Parliament and so on. Mr. Speaker, sir, I agree with Mutula Kilonzo Jr. when he said that there is a basic contradiction, because that's under Article 101. Under Article 102, the term of each House of Parliament expires on the date of the next general election. And 101 has said general elections will only be held on the second Tuesday in August of every year. Consequently, there's a contradiction between that and the powers being exercised by the president under Article 2617. Because under Article 2617, it has not been provided whether the election to be called is a general election or not. And if it is not, they would have had further amendments, Madam Speaker, on the effect of that on the sitting members. Does the term expire? And if it will be less than 5 years, what happens? And what happens in those circumstances? Do they still continue and serve for the balance of the term, which is 2 years, but did they say new parliament and so on? So there is a very fundamental contradiction there. And in fact, it's such a fundamental contradiction that the president cannot just act on it before the loopholes that have been identified on this matter have been rectified. Madam Speaker, we were aware of Article 2617, but it applies to the fourth schedule, which consists of many legislations to be enacted, and the period within which those elections must be enacted. Most of those legislations will not cause a fundamental problem. But where a decision to dissolve is going to affect other provisions of the Constitution which relate to election, then I submit, Madam Speaker, that those contradictions must first of all be ironed out completely and clearly stated before the Parliament can be dissolved. And Madam Speaker, the correct place to iron up these differences will be in a referendum. Referendum, why? Because the sovereignty of the people of Kenya is vested in the people. And the Parliament, the judiciary is acting on behalf of the people. The president is acting on behalf of the people. We are acting on behalf of the people. We are now telling the people that there's a very fundamental contradictions in the Constitution, very fundamental loopholes within the Constitution, which require to be closed up. And can the people decide on that matter? And therefore, before the president can really give assent, I hope he can be advised that don't give it until these constitutional fundamental constitutional principles have been closed completely. Madam Speaker, I wanted also to mention that
Emeritus, we give you 1 minute to wind up. Okay.
I've mentioned everything.
It's okay. Thank you very much for respecting that. Senator Haji Faria Ali.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. First of all, I want to be on record, and I wish to thank CJ Maraga for the decision he took, Madam Speaker. If it will take all of us going back to election for gender rule to be realized, so be it, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I believe that gender equity is a human rights issue, and therefore elected leaders should take care of that right, Madam Speaker. I also believe that if 50% of your brain is not on the decision-making table, Madam Speaker, yes, 50% of your brain, because women are 51% of this country, and their brain and their ideas is not on the table, Madam Speaker. Therefore, Madam Speaker, that is why we make all the blunders we make politically, and that is why we will never develop economically or socially, because 50% of the brains are not on the table, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Senator Mutula and I sponsored a bill on to third gender rule, Madam Speaker. And and this bill was debated, or before it even came to a debate, Madam Speaker, the chair of JLAC was on record that this, bill should be thrown out of the window. Madam Speaker, I think the women of Nandi should start collecting signatures. The former chair. To impeach Senator Cherargei for violating their rights. And then, but I thank the current chair, because now the bill has now advanced, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker.
What's your point of order, Senator
I hope
Cherargei?
you'll keep my time, Madam Speaker.
But with all due respect to my sister and Deputy Majority Whip, is it in order to say that the position I took was as the chair of JLAC and as a former chair of JLAC and as a senator of Nandi? I thought I was just communicating the decision of the committee, looking at the standing orders, that the chairperson of that specific committee will be the spokesperson of that committee. So you should not hang me on and Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr. is a member of that committee. I was just communicating. So I wish Senator Faria would restrict herself only, Madam Speaker, on saying the communication from the committee of JLAC, not Cherargei per se. Thank you, Chair.
Noted. Thank you, Senator Faria. Please finish 2.5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I think if the ruling that was made by Justice C.J. Maraga was on any other constitutionality other than the gender rule, Madam Speaker, most of us would have been respecting that rule. And as Senator Abshiro had mentioned, most of the bills that were going to make the House to be dissolved for non-passage have already been complied with, Madam Speaker, except the gender rule one, Madam Speaker. And therefore, Madam Speaker, that shows that there is a problem in terms of our understanding. Madam Speaker, 51% of this country are not adequately represented in both houses, Madam Speaker. At least Senate, we are just -1. But the other house, the percentage is, they are around 23%, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, I think as houses who are creation of the Constitution, I think it is incumbent upon us to ensure that we respect and protect the Constitution, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the bill that is sponsored by Senator Mutula and I is about, Madam Speaker, just filling in the gap. It's not like it's going to create, Kenyans are made to feel like it is going to bring another 290 seats back to the House. That is far from the truth, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, gender rule, I want people to know, is not about women. Gender rule is about both genders, Madam Speaker. And therefore...
point of order from Senator Sakaja.
Madam Speaker, our standing orders are clear on the issue of relevance. The motion that we're discussing is not about the merits or demerits of having 2/3. It is about the actions taken by the court. Would I be in order to say that this discussion is not on the relevance of the motion? Because we have a lot of thoughts and we support 2/3, but we're discussing the action of the Chief Justice in asking for the advising for the dismissal, for the dissolution of Parliament. Madam Speaker, could you guide? Because I know many other members are also going to contribute, but we're not discussing agenda bill today, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
Yes, Senator Sakaja, although in practice, when you are given your 5 minutes, you will have the right to also talk to your constituency. This is the practice we have had. You have only 40 minutes, Senator Faria. 40 seconds, sorry, 40 seconds.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I think this is still relevant because the CJ took this action as a result of the gender bill not being passed. And therefore, that is what I'm discussing in terms of it's relevant to what we are discussing now, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, therefore, Madam Speaker, let us look at how we can balance. Madam Speaker, there are a lot of things that are against women in terms of the elective position, Madam Speaker. They face a lot of challenges in this country in terms of election violence, in terms of parties not giving them nomination. There are so many impediments, Madam Speaker, not only for the gender, but also disadvantaged groups like the youth and people with disability, Madam Speaker. And therefore, Madam Speaker.
Time up, Senator. Senator Mbogo George Ochila Yako.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to make remarks regarding this very serious matter of national importance. Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, the Chief Justice did something that, to me, may appear to be a desire to be trending in social media and in news. But a responsible person would not do this. The Chief Justice is a holder of an office that must not advise or make advice that is pedantic, advice that cannot be implemented, advice that has the potential of causing chaos. And the Chief Justice says that we must rise to the pain of making difficult decisions. I don't think that we should be excited about making difficult decisions. We should be excited about resolving the consequences of our decisions. If you look at why we are here, where we are standing, it's not because of legislation. It's because of Kenyans who vote. In 2007, before the enactment of the Constitution, Kenyans have been voting like that. In 2012 or 2013, when they went to polls, they voted like that. In 2017. So the Chief Justice or somebody says, go back to polls. Have Kenyans changed? If the reasons and the pattern by which they vote have not changed, they are likely to return the same thing. So what needs to happen is perhaps the presidency to look at the situation and look at this as a moment that calls for reform. Asking Parliament to go home, when we come back, and I'm likely to come back, I'll be the same Ochilo. And Faria, my colleague, will be the same Faria. What will have changed? So basically, we need to have those laws so that when we go for elections, and that election will be in 2022, not now, then we will have a situation that will deal with this. So going for an election because the Chief Justice in his proximity to retirement has made something that is trending will not solve this. This will be solved if we are allowed to continue and try to negotiate and resolve this in the same manner that my cousin, Senator Moses Wetangula, and my nephew, Senator Sakaja, resolved the formula issue. We can't just go home and expect a magic to happen that the legislators who may come after us will solve it. So we need to solve it now, and we need to have time, because we'll not change. That is why sending home this team to bring another team that will be constituted in terms of atoms and molecules the same way will not yield the results. So the Chief Justice must seriously think about offering solutions, not making a decision that trends. Madam Speaker, as I conclude, just look at what the law says. And I agree with Senator Mutula Kilonzo that this constitution and Senator Wako has contradictions. If you look at Article 81, it says, the electoral system shall comply with the following principles. And the first one, which is A, freedom of citizens to exercise their political rights under Article 38. Then the one that is problematic is B. You can see the ranking. Not more than 2/3. That is the one that is following the first one, which is the first one. So let's go to Article 38, Madam Speaker. And when we go to Article 38 of the Constitution, and just allow me, I don't see very well to get there. If you look at 38C3, let me just go there. And 38(1)(3), every adult citizen has the right without unreasonable restriction, and you go to C, to be a candidate for public office or office within a political party of which the citizen is a member, and if elected to hold that office. So if the first right is under political rights under Article 38, 81, the one 81A.
Unfortunately, your time is up. The list is very long. Senator Mwaura Isaac.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm very excited. Oh, I don't know why. I think it is just Madam. I beg your pardon. I'm very excited, Madam Speaker, when I hear my fellow nominated senators talking about discrimination led by Senator Omanga, because when I started making those statements, immediately they came here. They looked like I was a man from Mars. But that is a problem of having a constitution that creates sinecure positions that do not necessarily hold the gravitas that they are supposed to, resort to. Because even this Senate, Madam Speaker, we vote by delegation. And so when you are a senator for people with disabilities, a man and a woman, I think there's equality of gender there, you are relegated to your home county and you are pigeonholed there. That is a contradiction. I think I had senior Attorney General Emeritus talking about the contradiction in this constitution. And what is envisaged is that even when there's a balance of power, checks and balances, it is not a basis for anarchy. And I really want to agree with Senator Ombogo Ochilo Ayako that we have an activist Chief Justice who wants to go down the annals of history as having made two key rulings that really made the country to even go to the edge of the precipice. Because, but then the problem of this is that you suffer from historical revisionism, because people will also look what was the motivation of your action. It will not just because you did it. You will be mentioned, but then people may dismiss your legacy by saying it was not well thought out. And Madam Speaker, this is the case, because if you look at the chronology of events, two things stand out. Number one is that there was a case or cases at the High Court, maybe they were consolidated, I stand guided, and the Supreme Court, the High Court, after its ruling by Mativo, the appeal was dismissed. So what was supposed to follow? It appears that the Chief Justice was moved by the 6 petitioners. Did they petition the High Court? That needs to be clear, or the Supreme Court. And in that regard, therefore, when you go and declare that a court order is as good as served because the parties are present when it was being issued, what kind of jurisprudence are you establishing there? Really? It therefore means that then you go and get the Hansard or whatever records of the court proceedings and use them as court order? What then therefore constitutes a court order? So I think one of the things that comes out clearly here is that you cannot look at the law in its purest of forms and say that it only exists by itself. Because legislation is positive law, as Hayek speaks about in terms of the rule of law. But the Chinese have actually moved ahead and argued that rule of law is not enough. They talk about self-discipline. Recently now they moved from self-discipline to self-purification. I think Justice Maraga should have self-purified. By looking at this issue and saying that if you are to dissolve Parliament, Madam Speaker, then you must look at the effect of that dissolution. Because one of the things that it does is that it separates elections. So the 6 elections that happen in a day, in terms of a general election, then they will be staggered. Maybe it may be good for IEBC, but what is the import of that in terms of our governance? And further to it, this is a monumental question, that has not been responded to. Is it actually true that Parliament failed to pass a law? And my answer is no, because there are not less than 3 attempts to ensure the provisions of Article 81, B and C, and Article 100 have come into effect. Even myself, I did propose, when we were passing the security amendment laws, to delineate the 12 nomination seats in the National Assembly as to occasion 6 of them to be men and 6 of them to be women for people with disabilities and all of that. We were just trying to fill these provisions of the Constitution to breathe life into it. And so going further, the question would be, does it mean that, what would be the best option of ensuring the promotion of representation of women or people with disabilities? Is it by facilitation so that they go first past the post? Or then do we resort as a country to go the proportional representation way so that you have the party lists? These are very fundamental questions that we need to talk about.
Time up. Senator Wetangula Moses Masiga.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I feel sometimes very worried when I see a holder of an office like the Chief Justice taking this nihilist approach to issues. Madam Speaker, the President should be advised that before he even considers the advice he has been given, he must seek the highest legal advice from other quarters. Because the Chief Justice has definitely acted, in my view, in a manner that is not reasonable. One, Madam Speaker, the advice of the Chief Justice must have been born out of the process contemplated under Article 261(6) that Mutula Kilonzo talked about. There is no reference to it at all, at all. And we will respect the Chief Justice, Madam Speaker, as lawyers, if he had given a judgment in court. Lawyers will say, we don't agree with you, but we respect it, because you're acting as a judicial officer. This one is quasi-judicial. He's offering an advice without any regard to process that is envisaged in the Constitution itself. In the President looking at this, Madam Speaker, he must consider the following. One, that under the same Constitution, Article 27(3), there is an outlaw of freedom of discrimination. People elect who they want. Number two, Madam Speaker, that once people are elected to Parliament, you cannot walk into this chamber and condition the senator from Makueni to vote in a particular manner. Every member has a right to vote. That is in Articles Part 5, 4, and 5 of Chapter 8 of the Constitution. That in this House, people vote, members vote according to their conscience, according to the issues before the House. Nobody can say, go and vote in the particular manner. Number three, Madam Speaker, every citizen in this country has a right to make a political choice. It is guaranteed in the Constitution. You can't then force them to make a choice in a particular manner. Number four, Madam Speaker, it is an act of universal suffrage under the Constitution itself, Article 81D, that when you go to elections, people present themselves to the electorate and they are voted for. What we should be looking at, and I want to encourage my good friend Millicent and those who are taking an activist approach to this issue, that this is not about activism, it's about realism. How do we achieve the gender parity without throwing the country into turmoil? What the Chief Justice has done can easily create a serious, serious crisis in the country. We need...
what's your point of order, Senator Manga?
Save my time.
Madam Speaker, is Senator Wetangula in order to call me an activist and that I'm not real? And we are talking about real issues. We are talking about human rights in the Constitution. And as you know, women's rights are human rights.
Yes, Senator.
Madam Speaker, I never called anybody an activist. I said, don't take an activist approach. Those are two different things. Madam Speaker, in fact, my credentials and my party are very clear. My count of Bungoma, Madam Speaker, has the record of the highest elected women, courtesy yours truly. Out of 45 wards, Madam Speaker, I have 13 elected women. Only 2 shy of the 2/3 majority because I gave them affirmative action and supported them. There is a young girl, Madam Speaker, who left university and went and defeated 16 men. She's an MCA because the party gave her a ticket and supported her. And we'll continue doing this. Change the psyche of your parties. Don't queue on lists to be nominated. Ask your parties to support you, to give you, especially in areas where parties are strong. When they give you a ticket, 50% of your election is done. And that's what we should be encouraging, Madam Speaker. Like Senator Yako has said, we can go home tomorrow. Many of us will come back. The same people will not have changed our agenda. We will be the same. How do we achieve this? We need a national conversation. And if it requires a referendum, let's go to it. But I want to caution the President that it will be an extremely dangerous misadventure to try and dissolve Parliament. Parliament has a fixed term, nobody can interfere. The good old days, the bad old days, Madam Speaker, when you would be on the floor speaking the way I'm speaking, and there's a news flash that the President has dissolved Parliament, and your speech ends there and you go home. Those days are gone. Parliament determines its calendar. And our women folk, we support you. We want you to be leaders. I want a woman president if she can make it. But find a better route than going through this nihilist approach by Justice Maraga.
Senator Langat? No. Senator Halaka Abshiro Soka.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, let me start by saying that the constitutional rights of the women of Kenya cannot wait another minute. And for that reason and that reason alone, I support and I affirm the decision by the CJ to render and to give advice to the President that this House is unconstitutional. Madam Speaker, if there's any constitutional crisis or pandemonium that's being said will happen, it is not because of the CJ. It is because of the lack and failure of this House to do what they should have done 10 years ago. Madam Speaker, I know my friend Senator Wetangula has said he has been very philanthropic and charitable to women in his cause. We do not need charity of party leaders. We need constitutionalism that is going to ensure that we have and will exercise the equal rights to legislative representation, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, to be the CJ of this country is to be the laughingstock, to be abused, to be threatened, to be intimidated. But I applaud the CJ. He is a legal fundamentalist, and he should continue to be true to the laws of this country. And I really, really think this country is blessed to have CJ Maraga at its helm. Madam Speaker, failure by Parliament to enact legislation on the 2/3 is tragic. It's been said here by both houses, especially by my friend Muturi, that it is not part of the mandate of Parliament. If implementation of the Constitution is not mandate of Parliament, what is? It has also been said that there's no mechanism to implement this provision. What is the 5th Schedule for if there's no mechanism? It's also been said that it's too costly to implement the 2/3 gender rule. Why is it that then we can do all the other things? We can implement devolution, we can go for referendum, we can have so many commissions upon commissions upon commissions. We can go back to a presidential election, but we cannot implement the 2/3 gender rule. Is it expensive, or is it just tragic and blatant denial of rights of women in this country? Madam Speaker, I've said it earlier on in Kamkunji, and I'll say it again. It is no longer about the laws, the legislation. It is about impunity. It's about refusing to uphold the rule of law for which we are responsible. We are legislators. Madam Speaker, I repeat, the constitutional rights of the women of this country must be respected, must be implemented, must not wait. And this is what, and I don't agree that the CJ did not follow the mechanisms provided. We've been told here, he's written letters to this House, there has been petitions, he has acted within his law, within the law, to implement as per his mandate under Article 261(7) of the Constitution. Another thing that has been said, Madam Speaker, is that there's Article 102 about calendar of events, a calendar of Parliament. In this case, I'm not a lawyer, but I'd like an interpretation of what is more important. I'd like an interpretation. In cases of contradiction, what happens? Do we just jump to the one that suits us? Or do we then look at exactly which one? So it's not on for us to run to Article 102 that talks about calendar. We must exist before our calendar exists. And if under law we are illegit, so be it. We can't have a calendar where we're not even legitimately constituted. Madam Speaker, you know, it's amazing how sometimes we look at ourselves and say, we who are nominated should have been the ones perhaps to be very scared because, party lists, I know we've been ridiculed here about, oh, your list will disappear. Stay with your lists and go back to the ballot. I support CJ and I celebrate him for his braveness. He is courageous. Last time when he nullified the presidential election, the people sitting on the other side who are now, literally abusing him were the ones that were really crying.
She's done already. Her minutes are over. So let's keep that point of order. Senator Inima Ketrut Musuruve.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to give my thoughts. And I want to start by saying, Honorable Speaker, that I do not support the statement by the CJ. And I want to say, Honorable Speaker, that statement was not well thought. That statement needed, the arms of governments coming together, having a conversation for the sake of this nation in order for that pronouncement to be made. So I want to say, Honorable Speaker, that when it comes to the arms of government, no arm of government should work alone. And I want to say, Honorable Speaker, that in as much as I really support that we need a 2/3 gender rule, I want to say even on the floor of this House, and I will not blink, even if there's an interruption, that even when women are talking about, 50-50, when they're talking about the 2/3 gender rule, they never think about women with disabilities. And I want to say, Honorable Speaker, it was even on the floor of this House, I've said many times, Senator Mwaura has also said many times, that in 17 county assemblies, there was no representation of, persons with disabilities. Where was the CJ? Why did he not comment on that? And I want to say, Honorable Speaker, even when we look at Article 54(2) of the Constitution, I want to say clearly that that article has been flouted many times in many organizations everywhere, where when it comes to nomination and elective positions or appointees, right from the top to the middle to the lower, persons with disabilities are underrepresented. Where has been the CJ? So I want to say, Honorable Speaker, that the CJ should be candid and he should not want to make a name. This pronouncement that he's making, where was he last year? Where was he last year but one? Why should it come at a point when he's supposed to exit? Honorable Speaker, I need to have a conversation. On the floor of this House, I remember we had an issue with the revenue sharing. It was heated, but because of a team that was there and there was conversation at State House, the issue was resolved. The president was involved, Baba was involved, and the issue was resolved. This issue can be resolved. So the CJ should stop politicking and should be candid to Kenyans. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And I want to say that if there's any change that should be done, let a referendum come so that in the referendum, the thoughts that we have, the wrongs that we have can be corrected. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Sakaja Johnson. Other.
Madam Speaker, whatever Senator Musuruve had for lunch, I would like it on my menu. And I would ask her to please share. Madam Speaker, the first thing I want to say is really to urge those senators who say they support the dissolution of Parliament to do the honorable thing, because you must put your money where your mouth is and resign immediately. Because if you support the dissolution, then you should actually resign. Because, Madam Speaker, this is not about necessarily the content of the petition. We are discussing the process. We support the gender issues, Madam Speaker. But even if it was a bill on another matter that needed to have been done within a certain timeline, he would have made the same decision, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to start by saying that indeed there is something happening and there is something amiss. For this reason, there is a petition, there are two petitions before the court to be heard on the 7th of October on the determination on whether Justice Mativo's order made on 29th March 2017 to the 11th Parliament refers to the 12th Parliament, Madam Speaker. That determination is to be made on the 7th of October. Where is this rush coming from? Where was the rush that CJ Maraga has coming from, Madam Speaker, to plunge us into what is a potential constitutional crisis? Madam Speaker, when I say this, and I'd like just for the record for people to know, just like my colleague Senator Omanga, we'd be ready for an election at any time. But if you look at the rules, Madam Speaker, right now there is no framework for an election. Parliament has a sole legislative responsibility in this country. If Parliament is dissolved and the next election can only be held in 2022, what happens in the intervening period? Who does budgets? Who is able to actually, Madam Speaker, play the role of representation, which is an Article 1 provision of the supremacy of the Constitution as well as the sovereignty of the people of Kenya, Madam Speaker. There is no other mechanism that is provided. Madam Speaker, so it points to mischief. It points to Samsonite kind of politics, where the CJ knows he's going and has decided, just like Samson in the Bible, to hold both pillars of the temple, or the, where they were, and go down with everybody, Madam Speaker. Mr. Speaker, now, I can see the change on the chair. Mr. Speaker, there's a point that was made by Senator Ledama, which is a very important point. Because number one, if you look at the Constitution, the requirement of certain laws to be passed by a certain time, Mr. Speaker, points to the 5th schedule. The 5th schedule has a number of laws listed in the timelines. There is no 2/3 gender law on the 5th schedule stipulating for it to be passed within 5 years. It is not there. Senator Wetangula, if you look, it does not exist. Mr. Speaker, Parliament can argue that even the Political Parties Act of 2012 that was passed is a law that has actually been written to actually help women achieve this. And I support what Senator Wetangula said. I have been a party leader. As chairman of my party, Mr. Speaker, where you are a member at some point, because I knew that it takes a lot to get women elected, I made sure that there's a level playing field, and of the 16 women who were elected in 2013 in single-member constituencies, 8 of them, half, were from TNA. Some of these things can be solved within political parties, and that's a discussion we must get into. So I support what Senator Wetangula said. Let us not be poetic about it. Let us go to the root cause of this issue and address it. But I'd advise the State House controller, change the PO box number of State House so that it does not reach there and it is returned to sender with immediate effect. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Sakaja, Senator wa Nairobi. Sasa nampa fursa Senator Petronila Were.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I also would like to join my colleagues to add my voice to this issue in relation to the dissolution or dissolving of Parliament, an order that was, or an advisory that was given to the President by the Chief Justice Maraga. Mr. Speaker, my main interest and why I'm happy today is that the country is having a conversation on this issue of women, especially women in leadership. Mr. Speaker, my focus is mainly how are we in this position in the first place? For a long time, Mr. Speaker, the country is not able to elect women into Parliament. That is where the problem is, and that is where our focus should be. How should we deal with the cultural issues that prevent fellow women voting for women leaders? What cultural issues prevent men voting for women leaders? That's where our focus should be. Our second focus should be on political parties, through which is the primary source, where leaders are nurtured, leaders are given to us. What should political parties do? What should political party leaders do? In areas, for example, where political parties have strongholds, like, for example, Jubilee in the Rift Valley and central former provinces, ANC in Western, for example, and then ODM in Nyanza. The party leaders of those parties in those areas should be able to make sure that we have women who are strong given direct tickets. So, and many other ways or mechanisms of making sure women are elected and they come to this parliament. Making sure that, or forcing parliamentarians to vote for women or for the women agenda is a tall order, because they have to answer to their cultural encumbrances back in their homes. They have to respond to the needs of their elders. So they also have their hands tied on this issue. So we should look beyond what just Maraga has, the CJ Maraga has raised, and look at the key issue. Why are women not voted for? And look for solutions there. So even as we look forward to enacting laws to meet this two-third gender, we should focus on amending the Elections Act, the Political Parties Act, and the IBC Act to reflect that fact, to ensure that women come by right to this house, so that when they come to this house, they also have voting powers, not what we experience now with nominated members. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I support the motion.
Asante sana kwa kujieleza kuzuri kabisa. Sasa hivi nachukua fursa hii kumpatia Mheshimiwa Millicent Omanga.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd first want to applaud the 14th Chief Justice of Kenya, Mr. David Kenani Maraga, for his advisory role and the ruling, actually, which I want him to advise the President, and actually it is in order. Mr. Speaker, lawyers in here, colleagues are talking a lot of jargon, and the Constitution is actually very clear. The colleagues in here want to behave like these commercial preachers we have in the streets, who actually read the Bible verses in isolation so that it fits their situation. It fits the situation where they want money from the followers, so they read some specific chapters. The way when you give, you get. I don't know, the lady in the Bible who gave 1 cent and got I don't know how much. That's how the lawyers in here are behaving. Mr. Speaker, the Constitution is very clear. Article 27, under the... You hold my time.
Mheshimiwa Okongo Mugeni, hoja ya nidhamu ni ipi?
Mr. Speaker, you have heard Senator Omanga senator that I respect a lot, refer not once, not twice, 3 times, equating lawyers in the House to commercial preachers in the streets of Nairobi. Is that language that is befitting debate in this House? And the lawyers in the House, as we speak now, is me and the Senator Cherage. Is she in order, Madam Speaker, Mr. Speaker, to use such a derogatory language against us, especially some of us who have toiled in this legal profession to the level of becoming senior counsel? I'm the only senior counsel from a region. Is she in order, Mr. Speaker?
Mheshimiwa Seneta Omanga, kabla ya kuzungumza, unakumbushwa kwamba utumie lugha ambayo ni ya heshima, ambayo inawapatia hadhi mawakili ambao ni wakutajika kama Seneta Omogeni na wengine ambao wamewakilisha bunge hili katika kesi nyingi. Na kabla hujarudilia kwenye mjadala, Mheshimiwa Cherargei, Seneta, uliweza kukiuka maadili kwa kuvuka sakafu bila ya kwenda pale kwenye foleni. Tafadhali kama unaweza kufanya vile ili tuweze kuheshimu nyumba. Mheshimiwa Omanga, unaweza kuendelea.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm most obliged. Mr. Speaker, I've had colleagues use a lot of escapism, talking about the 2010 Constitution was hurriedly passed. And Mr. Speaker, you know, the journey of the new Constitution started way long ago, from 1997, 2000. In 2005, we actually went to a referendum, which we didn't pass. Then we came in 2009, where we passed this new Constitution. And it was overwhelmingly voted for. It was 6 million against 2 million. So for colleagues to claim that the Constitution was hurriedly passed, it's not true. Because, Mr. Speaker, in our county assemblies, the 2/3 gender is complied to. Why is it that in the National Assembly, in Parliament, the National Parliament is where we have a problem, Mr. Speaker? It is because most colleagues here, who, when most of the time we come with this bill, the 2/3 gender bill, most of the colleagues are egocentric, selfish, that, Mr. Speaker, they don't want to hear anything to do with gender because they've taken gender to be a woman affair. What they don't know, Mr. Speaker, is that the ball might be on their court the other next time, because it will come a time where maybe women will be elected into parliament, and the boy child, the male gender, would be actually pleading to be included in the numbers in parliament. There is also an argument that about the calendar, Article 1 or 2, about the election of the president. What I wanted to ask them is that we went for a repeat election where our president was elected again in November 26th, I think. And the members of parliament, we were elected in August, around August 5th. So there's a difference of 3 months. Does it mean when our term ends, because they want to put it like it's cast on stone, 5 years, does it mean when our term ends, the president will still continue with his term for 3 months so that he finishes his 5-year term? So that one, Mr. Speaker, does not surface. So, Mr. Speaker, I think I want to urge colleagues, because Madam Senator Farhia has got a bill on this 2/3 gender bill. We need to just fast track it, and as members of my colleagues in the Senate, urge them to support Senator Farhia and Senator Mutula's bill, so that we are compliant. Otherwise, if we cannot, Mr. Speaker, actually support dissolution of this House, so that we go back to the drawing board, and maybe the new members who will be elected into this House would be thinking right and straight to come and pass this legislation to have women included in decision making. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Asante sana Seneta mteule, Seneta Millicent Omanga. Ni vizuri pia niseme kwamba mimi na wewe tulichora vizuri kuwa katika hili nyumba. Sasa hivi nataka kumkaribisha ama kumpa fursa Seneta Cherargei aweze kuchangia.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and wish you and congratulate you. I want from the onset to say the advisory that was transmitted or that has been given to the President under Article 261, 6, 5, 6, 7, and 8 is a threat to democracy and the social fabric of this country. In Kenya, and I thought Chief Justice Maraga, having worked closely when I was the chair of JLAC, would have borrowed one or two things, because the law does not exist in vacuum. You have had even in Part B of 261(5)(b), that order should have been transmitted to the Parliament of the Republic of Kenya. That one was never done, and therefore, even as you declare that this Parliament is unconstitutional, we need also to ask ourselves whether there has been an audit to know whether judiciary meets the threshold of third gender rule, the presidency or the cabinet, and the parliament and other organizations that work. I thought the achievement and the aim, Mr. Speaker, sir, was to have a progressive achievement on this issue of gender. And as we sat, when I used to chair JLAC, and tried to deliberate on this issue. On the bill that was brought before us. But we realized there are so many factors that I would wish our women, people living with disability, I am a young person, that we should realize that you need to create a level playing ground for a fair competition in politics. That is why for the youth and the people living with disability, also they need a pronouncement from the Supreme Court in terms of their representation. That affirmative aspect has been tried to be breathed to life under Article 53. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, sir, I think where we sit, the CJ misadvised himself on this issue of declaring the Parliament unconstitutional. Number two, Mr. Speaker, when you look at Article 101, the Constitution envisaged that every second Tuesday of every 5th year in August, we should have a general election. It did not envisage a situation where there would be a dissolution of Parliament. There would be a position where a president will be given an advice to dissolve Parliament so that people can go back to the vote. Mr. Speaker, some of us are not worried whether elections we call today, a snap election today or tomorrow. We are sure of coming back. But where does it leave the country? We have issues of COVID. The economy is not doing very well. There are over 16 million Kenyans without formal, or they are in formal sector. Others do not are underemployed in this country. And majority of them are people living with disability, and the young people, and mostly are women, Madam Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sorry. Secondly, I want to advise the women of this country. There are no free things, just like there are no free lunches. There are no freebies where you will sit and say, now today, you know that this democracy, Mr. Speaker, we should not create a very bad culture where we tell somebody, no, there is a seat. That is discrimination contrary to Article 27 of the Constitution of Kenya. If women today will know that there is a free seat somewhere, they will not compete. There are women like Phoebe Asio. There are women like Chelagat Mutai, who comes from my county. The deputy speaker, current deputy speaker. There are many women have fought hard with men. I have an MCA from Kilibwani Ward by the name Cynthia Muge. She floored over 20 men to win an MCA. I didn't hear. So my issue is women of this country, in the issue of gender, they must know there are no freebies. There are no free lunches. You don't need to work, but I want to advise that as we go back, we must agree. And then finally, or secondly and finally, I would have expected the Chief Justice who is retiring. On several occasions, he came before the committee of JLAC. We stood with him when the executive were doing budgetary cuts. He has forgotten. The other day, when the executive wanted him to retire, the other day, Mr. Speaker, sir, we are the ones who defended him and say he must stay up to December, because we didn't want to create a constitutional crisis within the judiciary. Why is the CJ not alive to all these issues, Mr. Speaker? Finally, Mr. Speaker, I want to say this. There is BBI coming. Is there a conspiracy to use this as a scarecrow against members of parliament, Mr. Speaker? And therefore, I think it is misadvised. I want to say we are ready for election anytime, but I can assure you if election is done today, Mr. Speaker, I can assure there will be more men coming to parliament than even women. I thank you.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Seneta Cherargei, wewe una machachari kabisa. Sasa hivi nampatia Seneta Okongo Omogeni, Seneta wa Nyamira, ambaye ni wakili mkuu ambaye amepatiwa hiyo hadhi na heshima na Mheshimiwa Rais.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I first want to state categorically that I am not an enemy of women of Kenya. Mr. Speaker, I am a son of a mother. I have been married for the last 23 years. I have a daughter who is aspiring to be a lawyer like me. She's doing her final year. So as a matter of fact, I have no hatred against the women of this country. But Madam Speaker, Mr. Speaker, I believe that the best that we can do to our women...
Samahani Mheshimiwa Seneta, leo nimeitwa Madam Speaker mara nyingi sana. Nafikiri kwa sababu tunazungumzia mambo ya jinsia.
Yes. Mr. Speaker, my wish for all the women of this country is that we should create an environment for our women to pursue their goals to their highest level that they want. And I was impressed, Mr. Speaker, to see the other day that the former Deputy Chief Justice of this country, Madam Nancy Baraza, has offered to run for presidency. And in line with Article 38, the best way to test your popularity among your people is to vie for elective posts. That's the best way to test your popularity among voters. Mr. Speaker, this constitution, I have tremendous respect with the committee of experts that drafted this constitution, but it has got a number of challenges. Mr. Speaker, if you go to Article 81 that talks about gender, Article 81B, it only makes a general statement. 81B says that not more than 2/3 of members of elective public bodies shall be of the same gender. But if you go to the 5th schedule, Mr. Speaker, there is no timeline given for enactment of any law under that particular article of our Constitution. The only article that has got time is Article 100, where Parliament was given a period of 5 years. But it says that Parliament shall enact legislation to promote. What is to promote? I mean, if you say that in an election, political parties will give both gender a chance to vie for nomination, that's promoting. If you state that women will not be harassed in campaigns, they'll get an environment to campaign, to do their campaigns freely, that's promoting. And if you go to Article 27, the obligation, I don't know that the Chief Justice has read this article. In Article 27, the obligation is placed on the state, not on Parliament. Article 27, 27 sub-article 8 says, in addition to measures contemplated in clause 6, the state shall take legislative and other measures. So the obligation is not on us as parliamentarians. The obligation is on the state. Therefore, this celebrated son of Nyamira, Chief Justice Maraga, is human. He can err like anybody else. It's only God who cannot make a mistake. I think on this one, Mr. Speaker, the Chief Justice has committed an error. And this opinion or advice that he has transmitted to the President can be challenged. And I'm happy that we have made a decision as Parliament to proceed to the High Court to challenge the advice that the CJ has given to the President. Finally, when we hold positions of responsibility, Mr. Speaker, we must always warn ourselves not to act in vain. You know, there is no end to Article 261(6). If Parliament is dissolved today, we come back again. If we don't attain the same gender, equality, 1/3 gender, we'll again be dissolved. So this will be a circus. I propose that as we go to BBI, we do a comprehensive review on these articles dealing with gender so that we don't create problems for the future generations. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Seneta Okong'o Omogeni. Sasa hivi nampatia fursa Seneta Sylvia Kasanga aweze kuchangia, na mwishowe kiongozi walio wengi tutakuwa tayari kufunga huu mjadala.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think we are not used to, I've not presented before you, Mr. Speaker. This is the first time. And thank you. I thought I'd be the last one, then I'd have asked for a little more time, but now that the majority is here, I think I'll have to try and condense my thoughts. And just starting from where Senator Omogeni stopped. He's a senior counsel and I like to be guided. I'm not a constitutional lawyer.
Samahani, nafikiri uzungumza kwa sababu bado tuna muda na nafikiri hii ndio hoja ya mwisho. Pengine dakika 7 hivi. Asante.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So starting from where Senator Omogeni has come from, that indeed this House should, this Parliament, both Senate and National Assembly should enact these legislations to make sure that when we go to the next election, then these envisioned legislations in the Constitution will be in place, then we don't have a situation like this one. Mr. Speaker, I agree that should be the position, but as of now, with the advisory that the CJ has given the President, I am personally celebrating it, and I'm looking at it as a great constitutional, a great constitutional moment, just like the same one he gave us when he nullified the election in 2017. Same thing happens here. And the silence is to mull over it and then realize that it is not the end and there cannot be a quagmire that cannot be resolved, in my opinion. In fact, I'm happy that this conversations of the 2/3 gender rule is back again on the table for discussion, hopefully now with a way out, rather than what we have seen. All the attempts that Senator Olekina has really outlined them very well here today, that so many attempts have been made towards this 2/3 gender rule. So why is it so elusive? And yes, maybe as Senator Omogeni is telling us, yes, the Constitution, the way it is written, you can poke holes here and there. When you read one clause to another, it is not quite saying. Then in the end, as leaders, is it not our duty to help solve some of these challenges that our Constitution has? And in the end, we have to acknowledge that what the Constitution envisioned as a 2/3 gender rule principle is a beautiful thing. And we have to respect this Constitution. After all, when we take our oath, we swear in God's name to defend it. So we have a duty to make sure those loopholes are sealed. We have a duty to make sure that the writers of this Constitution, with the vision they had, then we have to actualize that, that vision that they had. Mr. Speaker, world over, in fact, I was just going through some articles here. World over, this issue of women and marginalized groups not being well represented in governance and in leadership positions is the reason why many countries have had to institute, gender sort of legislations and frameworks to ensure this is happening. And we've seen it happen successfully in our neighboring countries around us. And we like to say that we are very progressive in East Africa, in the larger East African region, we are very progressive. But we consistently miss out on these opportunities to make us even more progressive. And in any case, I think sometimes we are retrogressing. So when we have leaders like the CJ today who can say these things that we don't want said, or to bring up these difficult conversations to ensure that we get to do things the right way, then we must celebrate. And now let us take it upon ourselves to see what we can do. I liked the proposal one of the senators mentioned here, that now going forward, maybe what we should do is have a delegation sit with the president to see what can be done in the fastest possible time to make sure we have a legislation in place, get the women to come into the parliament, and then we can proceed. Otherwise, Mr. Speaker, let us go home. Let the next new members who come this be their first order of business, if that is the case from where we have reached right now. But Mr. Speaker, I want to celebrate this. As you know, Kenya has been, we have been signatory, Mr. Speaker, to so many regional, sub-regional, and then international instruments such as the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. This is a human rights issue. The Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, the Africa Union Protocol on African Charter on Human Rights, People's Rights, Rights of Women in Africa, that is the Maputo Protocol, Mr. Speaker, the Solemn Declaration on Gender Equity in Africa. Surely we have signed up to all these things, and yet since 2010. We cannot effect a mechanism to ensure gender rule, 2/3 gender rule achieved. Honestly, Mr. Speaker, I think I'm happy with what the CJ has done, because let us be serious. Let us be serious as a nation that is calling itself progressive. Let us be serious as leaders. Let us actualize the Constitution as it has been envisioned. And let us give, the future Kenyans, let's give our children something to look forward to. This has nothing to do with competition in the electoral field. It has nothing to do with that. It is a 2/3 gender rule that should be seen not just in Parliament, but in every other governing, legislative, and anywhere where leadership is required. Let us give space to 2/3 gender rule. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Asante sana. Sasa hivi nampa fursa kiongozi walio wengi, Senator Pogisho.
Mr. Speaker, I just wanted to thank you for this opportunity and also to congratulate members, Mr. Speaker, who have contributed to this emotional adjournment. Mr. Speaker, it is very clear now that even here, all the male members on one side and all the female members on one side, and I think we have not really gotten the gist of the consequences that come from the decision or the advice by the Chief Justice. Speaker, if you look at the Senate, for example, I think the Senate has come the closest to meeting the 2/3 rule. The Senate, therefore, can be said to have made a representative of the both genders taken seriously, Mr. Speaker. And I think if we continued moving this way, it is possible, therefore, to reach that 2/3 progressively, as has been argued. But it does not necessarily mean that the Parliament is against this move. The Parliament has tried, as has been told, as we've been told today. We know how many efforts have been made by Parliament to try and reach that particular threshold. And so I think that with the advice, and I don't know why the Chief Justice, Mr. Speaker, had to be the one to declare this or give this advice or transmit this advice to the President. His term is coming to an end, and he would have probably given a chance to the next Chief Justice to weigh in on this matter with clear new vision, with a new sight, with a new a way of looking at things after, Mr. Speaker, after, for example, the referendum. And this would have been a much better way to handle it. And Mr. Speaker, I don't know how much effort the Chief Justice has taken to consider that it is not just necessarily being a stickler or the letter of the law that is more important. I think also the spirit of the law. And look at the country right now. If this, for example, were to be taken into consideration as an advice and action taken, which, God forbid, action should be taken. But if it were to happen, look at the consequences, look at the chaos that this would throw the country into. Just looking at the law itself without considering the spirit of it and the practicality of it. And of course, it's been argued here by our lawyers, and senior counsel was here earlier, as reminded us, Mr. Speaker, that the Chief Justice could have been advised better on this matter. However, now it's in the hands of the President and the Executive, and we know that they have decided also to appeal against it, and the Senate and let's just say the Parliament has also decided to appeal against it, and so we will wait and see. But we think that in determining some of these decisions, like this advice, I think the Chief Justice should have decided to skip this one and allow a new Chief Justice to weigh in on this so that he can look at the totality of the situation in our country. Speaker, as we were looking at it, we were not even thinking about talking about the Chief Justice in his person as Justice Maraga, but in that office, it's so endowed with a lot of special advice and advisors, so endowed with specialists in matters law, so endowed with specialist matters constitution. And there are many who read differently. Our excitement about the two-third gender rule is as good for the men as it's for the women in this country. It's just that the practicality of it is not there. We just cannot practically bring ourselves within the time limit that we have now to make it possible. Unless, of course, you really want to take the country into a direction where we force ourselves into these matters. I think progressively also prepares the women, gives the women an opportunity to get, even if you look at the statistics, there are more women probably than men in population. But even if you look at the statistics of that gender rule in places of the world, there are very few countries, Mr. Speaker, who can attain this, given the time. Very few of our countries, including great democracies that we have been told here, including the US and the UK and other places. So I just wanted us to handle this matter as has been handled by just going to court against it and making sure that Justice Maraga does not get through with his advice, that the president does not allow that to happen because it is going to affect the whole country. Can you imagine a few months or even more than a year sometimes preparing for an election and then another general election? The timing even itself of this advice, Mr. Speaker, even just the timing, even if you're to say now, okay, we go home, which, I mean, we're not afraid to go home. We can go home. Some of us will come back, some will not come back. But what happens to the country? What happens to the economy of this country? Can you imagine that we would actually be thrown into a chaotic situation? Under COVID, same time, the economy is already suffering, and then you think about, I think some of these things should have been taken into considerations. And so we, in this House, we've already said that the best example of coming very close to the perfect two-gender rule is the Senate. But it's not possible elsewhere. Because the Senate had this constitutional, given constitutionally. It can be done, but there are certain institutions where it cannot be done. And so we want to say thank you to the members, and we're very considerate. I think nobody has been adverse. Nobody has gone into name-calling. Nobody has gone into personal attacks. And I think that the Senate has handled this very well. I heard the discussions in the other House, and I know some people have gone personal and things like that. I thank the Senate. Let's not take this as if it is a personal attack. It is just that we need to deal with our Constitution. Mr. Speaker, to some extent, we need to relook at our Constitution. And that particular area, look at it. We can improve it. I know some people have said we can delete it, but I think somehow we can improve it. So with those few remarks, I just want to thank members, and Mr. Speaker, I support.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa maseneta, kwa sababu ya mjadala mzuri ambao tumekuwa nao, na ni vizuri kuchangia. Niseme kwamba kama uamuzi ama wasia huu wa koti hautaweza kutiliwa manani, basi utapunguza makali ya mkono wa sheria, na hiyo sio jambo zuri. Na pia kama itakuwa kwamba bunge kwa ujumla liko katika huruma ya mkono wa utendakazi wa serikali, basi itakuwa inapunguza uwezo wa bunge. Lakini haya ni masuala ambayo yataendelea kuibuka pindi tunavyochangia huu mjadala. Waheshimiwa watadhimiwa maseneta, kwa sababu tumeshamaliza mjadala huu wa kuahirisha kikao hiki cha bunge, sasa kikao hiki kimeweza kuahirishwa mpaka kesho, siku ya Jumatano tarehe 23 Septemba mwaka wa 2020 saa 8:30.